You ever get that feeling that the world is just spinning faster and faster, that it's filled with constant change, constant disruption, and you're just trying to keep your footing? Well, how do we not only survive in a world like that, but actually thrive? Today, we're going to dive into a roadmap for building real resilience, both in our careers and maybe even more importantly, inside ourselves.
Okay, let's kick things off with this absolute gem from Friedrich Nietzsche. This idea, it's going to be our North Star for this whole deep dive. I mean, really let that sink in for a second. If you have a strong enough reason, a big enough why, you can handle almost anything the world throws at you. That search for your why, that's the heart and soul of being resilient. So, here's our game plan. First, we're going to try and put a name to this age of uncertainty that we're all feeling. Then we'll see how businesses are literally rewriting their playbooks to deal with it. After that, we pivot to the personal stuff, the search for meaning, how to get yourself unstuck, and how some ancient wisdom can help us find a little calm. And then we'll wrap it all up and see how to craft a life that can bend without breaking. All right, let's get into it. You know that feeling, that sense that things are just more chaotic and unpredictable than they used to be? Well, you're not imagining it. Researchers actually have a name for it: unprecedented turbulence and systemic uncertainty. Kind of sounds intense, right? So what's really going on here? Let's break down what's driving all this chaos.
First up, the economy. Man, just think about the roller coaster we've all been on. You got the 2008 financial crisis, then the massive supply chain mess from the COVID-19 pandemic. It's a huge reminder of just how tangled up and, frankly, fragile our global economy is. And this isn't a one-time thing, it's a pattern. This constant economic instability is the new backdrop for all of us.
And then, of course, there's technology. We're living through what's being called the second machine age. AI, automation, the Internet of Things. These aren't just sci-fi concepts anymore, are they? They are completely rewriting the rules of the game for entire industries, making old ways of doing things obsolete almost overnight. It's happening so fast it can make your head spin. On top of all that, we've got massive environmental challenges staring us in the face. And look, things like climate change and resource depletion aren't some far-off problem for our grandkids. This is happening right now. It's in the extreme weather that messes with our infrastructure. It's in the pressure on companies to be more sustainable. It's another huge layer of unpredictability that everyone has to deal with.
And last but not least, the whole global political scene feels like it's been thrown into a blender. There's this rise in what people are calling deglobalization. It's like the rule book for how countries work together is being ripped up and rewritten on the fly. So, what's the big takeaway here? Simple. The idea of a stable, predictable world is pretty much out the window. The ground is always moving, so we've got to learn how to surf the waves.
So if you're a business, how in the world do you plan for any of this? Yeah, the old methods, they just don't cut it anymore. It's about a total mindset shift, from trying to predict the future to building the strength to prepare for whatever it brings. We need a new playbook. And here's the really cool part. The stuff that makes a business resilient, it's almost the exact same stuff that can make you resilient.
Just look at the difference here. The old way was all about straight lines and 5-year plans, assuming nothing major was going to change. Spoiler alert, everything changes. The new way, it's all about being nimble, like a boxer on their toes. It's about being able to adapt, learn constantly, and pivot on a dime, not just react when something bad happens.
So what does this actually look like in practice? Well, the most resilient companies nail 4 key things. 1, they're always scanning and sensing, always looking for what's on the horizon. 2, they manage all kinds of risks, not just the financial ones. 3, they build what's called adaptive capacity, which is just a fancy way of saying they can actually change course quickly. And 4, they build real trust with everyone, their employees, their customers, you name it. Think about it. A smart clothing brand isn't just crunching sales numbers. They're on TikTok, seeing what's about to blow up. That's the new rule. Stop trying to be a fortune teller and start training to be a firefighter. Okay, and this is where things get really interesting. We can talk about spreadsheets and adaptive strategies until we're blue in the face, but what is a company? It's people. Just people. And that leads to the real question. How can we expect any organization to be strong if its people are feeling stretched thin, burnt out, and just lost in all the chaos?
And that question? It brings us to Viktor Frankl. His story is just incredible. He was a psychiatrist who survived the Nazi concentration camps. He didn't come up with his philosophy in some comfortable office. He forged it in the face of the absolute worst humanity has to offer. And what he saw there, what he discovered, changes everything. He realized that the one thing that kept people going, even in that horror, wasn't a search for happiness or power. It was a search for meaning.
This discovery became the foundation of his entire life's work, which he called logotherapy. The best way to think about it is like a compass for your soul. Frankl said, look, forget pleasure, forget power. The thing that really drives us deep down in our bones is this will to find meaning. When we have it, we can get through anything. And when we don't, well, that's when we're truly vulnerable, even if everything on the outside looks perfect.
And if you think this is just some abstract philosophy, let me tell you about a guy named Brian. This dude had it all, right? CEO of a big bank, corner office, the beautiful house, the whole 9 yards. By every external measure, he was a huge success. But on the inside, he was miserable. And it took him years to figure out why. He'd built this incredible life, but it wasn't his life. He'd been living out his father's dream. He had absolutely nailed the how of success, but he had completely lost track of his own why. So, what if you feel a little bit like Brian? You feel kind of stuck, even if things look good on the outside. How do you even begin to change that? Well, for that, we're going to look at some amazing work from a researcher at the University of Toronto named Maja Jichi. She developed a really practical model for this exact situation.
Okay, so Jickets points out this huge mistake most of us make when we try to change our lives. We just focus on our behavior, right? Like, I'm just going to force myself to go to the gym. But if you're emotionally drained or you have zero real motivation, how long is that really going to last? She says we have to look at the whole picture, which she calls the wheel of self. You've got to look at your mind, your body, your motivation, and your emotions, not just your behavior. They're all connected. You can't just fix one spoke and expect the whole wheel to turn smoothly. And this idea completely changes how we should think about something like burnout. It's not just, I'm working too hard. No. She says it's about an imbalance of willpower. It means you're doing way too much stuff that empties your tank and not nearly enough stuff that fills it back up. So, the key isn't just to work less, it's to do more of what actually energizes you. So, how can you tell if you're stuck? Well, there are some classic warning signs. That little green monster of envy popping up all the time. Or maybe you're constantly scrolling social media, comparing your life to everyone else's highlight reel. Or just that nagging feeling that you're behind in life. But here's the most important part. Feeling stuck doesn't mean you've failed. It's just a check engine light on your personal dashboard. It's telling you, hey, time for a tune-up on your wheel of self. Okay, so we've got the big picture why from Frankl and a map for personal change from Jijikit. Awesome. But what about Monday morning? The daily grind. When your flight gets canceled or your boss is driving you nuts. For that, we're going to reach way back in time to the ancient philosophy of Stoicism for some seriously practical advice. And this quote from some random person on Reddit just nails it. They're talking about a miserable commute. We've all been there, right? The perfect storm of frustration. And their solution is Stoicism 101. Can't control the traffic? Fine. But you can control how you react to it. And that is where all your power is. This next one is even simpler, but it's so profound. The snow is going to fall. That's a fact. Getting mad about it changes absolutely nothing. The only choice you have is how you experience the snow. And that, right there, is the heart of Stoicism. Seriously, it's that practical. Just make 2 mental buckets, stuff I can control and stuff I can't. Then pour all your energy into that first bucket. It's a game changer. All right, let's take a deep breath and pull all of these powerful ideas together. We've looked at this crazy, uncertain world we live in. We've seen how businesses are trying to adapt. And we've dug into some really deep ideas about meaning, personal growth, and finding our own inner calm. So now what? How do we actually use all this to build a truly resilient life? This right here is the big aha moment. Check out these parallels. It's wild. A company needs adaptive capacity. Well, that's just a fancy way of saying what Frankl taught us. You can always choose your attitude. A business has to do risk management. That's exactly what the Stoics said. Focus on what you can control. They do environmental scanning. We can scan our own wheel of self to see what's really going on inside. And that need for stakeholder engagement, that reflects our own deep need for meaning beyond ourselves. See? The playbook for building a resilient company is pretty much the exact same playbook for building a resilient you. Which brings us to the end and to this one final question. There's this concept called life crafting, and the core idea is simple. The best day of your life is the day you decide your life is your own. No apologies, no excuses. In a world that feels so out of control, finding your why, knowing yourself, and choosing your reaction, these aren't just nice ideas, they're your tools. They are the pen you get to use to write your own story. The gift is yours. So how are you going to write it?